Weinstein for making it such a high-quality production. And right now, it has ranked in the top 10 on iPod downloads in the political section since its creation. And that's with virtually no advertising. And it's up there with things like Hannity and Combs and CNN Productions. I mean, multi-million-dollar corporations trying to advertise their podcasts, and we just simply put it out there each week. And the good news is, in about a month, we're going to go to a daily podcast that, not surprisingly, will air at 4:20 Eastern Time. We're going to do original content on the weekend, and I want to let you know that in this room is the content. We are the content. The experts, the victims, the stakeholders, they are here. You are the content of this daily podcast, and so the producers and myself will be reaching out to a lot of people to make this popular. And we certainly want to build our strength, build on our strengths, NORML's brand name, and to forge mutually beneficial partnerships with like-minded groups who seek to serve the primary stakeholders in marijuana law reform, cannabis consumers. The best example to date is the emerging partnership between NORML and Safer Alternative for Enjoyable Recreation. In the wake of last year's success in Denver, where the voters voted in the majority to make marijuana $0 fine for 1 ounce or below, from that point forward, this is what we've been doing with Safer. We created a college-based effort to focus attention on student referendums seeking equity for marijuana offenses as compared to alcohol offenses. And this has happened in the last month and a half at FSU, at University of Texas at Austin, and last week at the University of Maryland. So this is a major movement that's going on college campuses, and we want to thank Safer for getting us off the ground. NORML has performed fundraising alerts for NORML's Colorado, and we've served it out on our Colorado and national listservs to raise funds for Safer's statewide efforts. In many respects, it will legalize the possession of marijuana in Colorado if they qualify for the ballot. It would be $0 fine for 1 ounce or below. And we're happy to work with Safer in trying to reach the stakeholders because, again, as I say over and over again, that is really the entity that will change the laws. It's not going to be a top-down. It's not going to be an elite-driven aspect, though as we go to our next panel, you see that an amalgam is what is needed between grassroots and grass tops. And soon, NORML members, past and present, will receive a mailing from NORML asking for donations from Safer, and we're funding that mailing, and we're giving half the proceeds to Safer. And that's fairly unprecedented. I mean, some lists trade, some groups sell their lists, but we're opening up our list for Safer. And that's fairly unprecedented, certainly from NORML's point of view. And I'm very, very proud to say that I think that NORML is still putting out the highest quality reporting and analyses possible regarding marijuana policy and the effects on the body. I'm very proud that we've kept this long standard going of researching and looking at contemporary relevant information that is consumer-oriented for adults. One of the more enjoyable and intellectually fulfilling parts of my job at NORML is getting to work with Paul Armentano, NORML's senior policy analyst. It's a real pleasure researching, crafting, and editing the many reports with him. So this past year, here are some of those reports. We published high-quality reports on cannabis in the brain, DUID, cannabis and cancer, cannabis and cognition, and NORML's weekly news release, which helps mark the ebb and flow of marijuana law reform efforts over these many years. That weekly report has been going out since December 8th, 1992. That is sort of the benchmark of what goes on in marijuana law reform, and it sort of is our measurement, if you will. And we're happy to put that out every single week without failure. And I would say that substantive and verifiable information must always take precedence over hope and speculation when it comes to competent humanistic policy making. So a tip from the podium, if you can invest $400, the best post-college lecture I've seen is from former Yale professor Edward Tufte, T-U-F-T-E. And if you haven't seen that, if you're not even familiar with Dr. Tufte's work, I commend you to it because it speaks to the difference between substantive communications, something I think drug policy tries to do, as compared to propagandistic, emotion-driven information that is by our opponents, generally speaking. And so Tuft is an excellent, excellent primer on how to start thinking about how to present information, particularly graphically. The upcoming, and this year we'll have a couple of other publications coming out. We'll be issuing the new Citizen's Guide to Marijuana Laws, which has state, federal laws, arrest data, legal rights, and listing of lawyers. And we're going to list, for the first time ever, come up with NORML's comprehensive guide to cannabis and health. As always, it is the support, financial and otherwise, from folks in this room, stakeholders in the efforts to change our country's misguided marijuana laws, that makes these reports possible, this conference possible, and for NORML to have survived for 35 years. I alluded to three major obstacles that I believe, as the director of NORML, in my point of view, still stand in our way of substantive reform. I mentioned immorality. And so I'm going to pump up I know it's hard to see. In fact, here, let me just, very hard to see. This is, I'll jump to the next one. Yeah, I'll just have to go down and speak it up.
Just tell us what it is.
It's a chart. It's got a little
Great slide, Alan.
You can see it now, right?
Yes.
So that you're blind, okay? What I am showing you here is a report that was released, a poll from the Pew Foundation about a month ago. And what it looked at was immorality in America. What do Americans think are immoral? And it looked at about 8 or 9 areas. And so it looked specifically at, is marijuana smoking immoral? And what does it indicate? It indicated about 50% of Americans think that smoking marijuana is immoral.
All right.
Now, to give you an idea of where we land in the body politic, 50% of Americans think that homosexuality is immoral, and 50% of Americans think that abortion is immoral. So, going to the Supreme Court twice in the last 5 years really does speak to the fact that this is a serious, major, political, social issue of our times. We are in the middle of it. You individuals that are activists are trying to push these numbers into the majority. And so it's very, very hard to imagine, unless you can, as Ross indicated, as Marcia indicated, if you're in a geospatial area that allows for these sort of things, then you can move forward. But, you know, Ross in Salinas, Kansas might not work. And so as long as 50% of the general public believes that marijuana use is immoral, the notion or effort to legalize and tax and regulate it is a very hard sell to the average person. Many marijuana users and some reform organizations should embrace marijuana, responsible marijuana use, and respect marijuana culture for what it is in our country and our lifetimes. That is to say, a bona fide and identifiable subculture that needs to be lauded and praised, not shunned or taken advantage of.
So happy we alive, we together can survive. Stop the bullshit, stop the lies, and now's the time to legalize. Tell me brother, tell me true, what the hell we gonna do? Remember the days we saw purple haze. 1 and 1 is 3. Hey, hey, baby, what you do to me? We so happy, we alive, we together can survive.